Hi everyone, it's Amber. I'm back, and this time we're going to be talking about personal branding and confidence. So, if you participated as a junior last year in the program and maybe you're a senior this year, it might seem a little bit repetitive, but there are some cool new things that we want to be talking about related to personal branding and confidence. And the addition of confidence is really vital at this point because we really want to talk about building yourself up, especially as you take these next steps in life. So, I'm really excited to be here again with you, and this webinar is super important to your overall security moving forward and how you feel about yourself. And so I'm really excited to be able to talk about this with you today. So first, we want to talk a little bit about, what is personal branding? And personal branding is the ongoing process of establishing a prescribed image or impression in the mind of others about an individual. This is really fancy, sounds really cool. Basically, it's what people say about you when you're not in the room. It's what they think about you whenever they hear your name. It's kind of the associated thoughts that individuals have about you, kind of your reputation, if you will. And the cool thing about a personal brand is that it can be changed. You can really decide how people perceive you and how you kind of choose for them to view you. And personal branding is really important, especially as you enter a career path, because this is kind of where you'll hone in on what your personal brand is and why it's important. So why is it important? I kind of hinted at this a little bit already. You already have one. When we talk about reputation, it can be a positive reputation or it can be a negative reputation. And your personal brand can be positive or negative as well. So if you've ever wondered what people are saying about you behind your back, that is your personal brand. And developing a personal brand will help you find opportunities in the workplace. It helps grow your network. So who you know is really important in your personal brand and in your career. It helps you direct your image. So it helps you know where you are right now and figure out how to move forward and how to have other people perceive you in a more positive light. It helps you build your self-confidence and helps you find your authentic voice. It helps you really understand what you value, how you perceive yourself, and how you want others to perceive you. And so there are 3 C's that we like to refer to as the components of the personal brand. The first one are your colleagues. And so this, in your case, as students, would be your friends and who you associate with outside of your family or your professional career. And so a lot of times, your friends are very important to consider when you're thinking about how people perceive you. What kind of people do you hang around? And a lot of times you often have maybe that one negative friend who can really bring you down, or when people want to hang out with you, they understand that if you're with this person, you're a little bit different because that person, you kind of tailor how you act towards what that person wants. And so just be really aware of what your friend groups kind of portray about you as well, because your colleagues are super important in how people perceive you. And the friends that you hang out with now are the friends that you'll be perceived as kind of having developed you to this point in your life when you're moving forward. A second C that's really important is the credentials that you have. And so if as a high school student, you'll be graduating with a diploma. And so that is the first step to a very important set of credentials depending on your career path. For simulated workplace students, you already have some certifications for your programs, which will take you another step up. In my case, I'm in a master's program, so I've taken another step past my traditional bachelor's degree to then increase and get a master's degree. And so it's just adding a kind of a repository of different opportunities that show my skill set and really are able to tailor what I'm doing towards my future. And so this could be anything from your degree to maybe you do some volunteer work and you received a certificate for that. Maybe you're CPR certified. There's a lot of different ways that you can use credentialing to kind of hone in on your personal brand. And then finally is your career. So basically this is, what are you doing now? What's your background? Like, what kind of professional experience do you have and where do you want to take it? And so with your career, they always say it's like 3 years in the workplace to really have experience in that specific position. And so this part of the personal brand is something that as students, you might not have fully developed yet, but even if you are working like a part-time job after school, that counts as experience working in a professional workplace because you have to interact with teams, you have to interact with managers, and it's just more experience to show your credibility moving forward. And so as you are determining what your personal brand is currently, I want you to really think about what these 3 C's mean to you. So you'll have your colleagues, your friends, your teachers, your credentials. So what's your community, your colleges, what kind of certificates you've gotten during school, I apologize. This is my puppy. Luna, come here. Luna, come here. We have a special guest here. Come on. You want to come up? Come here. Come on. You say hi. Special guest to the webinar. We have Luna. She's one of my colleagues, so she's part of my personal brand. So I'm gonna go ahead and pause real quick, and then I'll be right back. The 3 C's, very important, and we really want you to be thinking about, and we call it a self-audit at this point, really be thinking about what your 3 C's are right now and kind of how you want them to continue to grow as you move forward. It's really important to be aware of the different perceptions that you have around yourself, your friends, and in your kind of career path in life. And so we're going to pause for a second, and I'm going to ask you, if you have already previously watched the other webinar, you would kind of be aware of my format. But I like to include discussion checkpoints and different activity checkpoints where I ask you to pause the webinar and just kind of focus in on specific things that we've talked about to really check in and make sure you're gaining something from the webinar. And so at this point, I'd like you to pause, and I'd like you to answer the questions on the slide. What do you think your current personal brand reflects about you? And then conduct a quick reality check independently, or ask your classmates for feedback. And ask them for honest feedback. Like, what do people really think about you? And it can be positive or it can be negative. They should be helping you grow and develop as well. And so I really want you to perform. I like to I call this stalking myself. So like, what does my social media kind of perceive about me? Who do I think I am? And then who do I portray myself to be? And so go ahead and pause and really think about that for a second. Okay, so now that we kind of have reflected on where we are, now we're going to really think about how we can take that next step in directing where we want our personal brand to be. And so there are a couple different tactics and skills around personal branding that we'll introduce today. And the first is creating a personal branding vision for ourselves. So that's basically like a lofty long-term goal or a vision of what we want to see our personal brand looking like in the future. And so to really achieve this development of a personal branding vision, you need to ask yourself 2 questions, 2 overarching questions. And underneath those, there are different components that will take place to really hone in on this idea. And the first question is, who are you? And so this is very important in figuring out, if you don't know who you are, if you're still struggling with these kinds of questions, then it's probably not ideal for you to then try to create something that is made from scratch, right? So you really want a foundation of understanding of who you are and what you believe in prior to trying to direct any image moving forward. And so you'll ask yourself who you are. And we want you to really identify your values and prioritize your values. If you attended one of our in-person workshops, there would have been a session on values and vision where you had the opportunity to really think through what your core values are. We would have talked about a moral compass and how you can use those values to make sure that you're making strong decisions, even when faced with challenges. So this is the step where we want you to really, if you haven't already done so, identify and prioritize those values. And then ultimately, once you've had those values prioritized, that's when you're going to start identifying your passion areas and your ideal traits of how you want to be perceived. And so that's kind of just a quick glance at taking a reality check, understanding who you are, prioritizing your values, identifying what passions you really want to pursue with your future, and identify what ideal traits would make that personal brand for you really real and really be able to be something that you can own. And then finally, the second half of creating a branding vision is that point where you're like, okay, but here's how I am, here's who I am, and who do I want to be? And so this is the opportunity to then move it forward and take it to a new step and really develop who you want to become and have that opportunity to direct your brand, as we like to call it. And so this section has 4 similar kind of breakdowns of the process. So the first one is to identify rewarding aspects. And I just had a great talk with a woman at a conference. It was for the National Association of Community College Entrepreneurship. And she was a great lady. She had been done a lot of consulting work. And I said, like, what advice would you have for somebody that's my age? I'm 24, close to 25, and I'm struggling with, my future, right? So like, even today, I still struggle with, where do I want to be like when I grow up? And I technically should be a grown up, but it's hard to know what to do with that. And she said, you don't need to know every step right now. What you need to do is you need to figure out, in 10 years, what do you want to be? And to me, it's easy. It's like, you want to be happy, you want to be successful, you want to maybe have a family. Like, I have my dogs. You've already met Luna. She's great. So there's certain overarching concepts and rewarding aspects of a life that I want to have in 10 years. Like, I want to be financially stable. I don't want to live paycheck to paycheck because my student loans are killing me. You know what I mean? Like, those are the certain big picture goals that you should be thinking about, not anything specific, because life isn't specific. But when asked, who do you want to be, you should be able to say that you want to be successful and that you want to have certain components of your life kind of ideally figured out. And then you need to narrow that down to one vision. So in like 2 to 3 sentences, you should be able to say, I want this, this, and this in 10 years. And then you move backwards, right? So you created a vision and you created this ideal ending for yourself. And then if anybody's interested, there's this whole session that I could do on backwards design, but it's at that point that once you've created this vision, you work back to figure out the steps that will help you get there. Like, what kind of career could possibly get you there? Say you want to you want to be your own boss, right? And you want to not be reliant on others for your leadership. So a career path for you could be entrepreneurship. Apologies. A career path for you could be entrepreneurship. And what you'll want to do at that point is then look into, like, what kind of training do you need to be an entrepreneur? What kind of essential skills do you need to be an entrepreneur? How do you need to be perceived to be an entrepreneur? And so moving backwards from this ideal vision of financial stability, like having a family in 10 years, moving backwards will really help you figure out where your priorities are and what your personal brand needs to be building up to that. And so that's a long-winded explanation of something that basically just says, who are you now? Who do you want to be? Figure that out, and this all will fall into place a lot quicker than if you're struggling with kind of existential crises that most young people have. It's okay to have them, and we all do, and we don't really talk about it much. There's kind of a stigma of, like, we don't know what we want to do with our lives, but everyone thinks we should know what we want to do with our lives, and that's okay. I'm saying big picture thinking, you should have an idea of, like, where you want to be in 10 years, big picture. Does not have to have a career path tied to it. You should just know basically what makes you happy and what in 10 years would continue to make you happy. And that's all we're saying. That's all you got to do, guys. So at this point, there's another discussion checkpoint, and I really want you to think through these questions. So pause it. I encourage you to pause and really take time to reflect on these, and keep in mind that these will always be changing. Okay, so I hope you didn't have a panic attack. It's all good. We'll get you through it. It's okay that you don't know everything right now, and that's the point. The point is to get you thinking about these questions. And so the next kind of step in a personal brand and owning who you are is to create a more concrete and more identifiable personal brand statement. And so this is broken up into 3 pieces, and it's very simple. It's like 1 sentence, 2 sentences max that say who you are, what value you provide to people, to your target audience, what is your unique selling proposition. And so if you looked at the webinar from last year around creative kind of personal branding, we talked about this a little bit. There are millions, thousands of high school students who have a 4.0 GPA, right? So that is not your unique selling proposition. Your unique selling proposition is how you differentiate yourself from your competitors. This is a super important part of this process. When I was in my junior year of college, I took a sales class, and we think that's like selling. A lot of people say, like, sell me this pen, right? They're like, sell me this pen, you're going to be a good salesman. My professor did not do that. He said, if you can't sell yourself, you won't sell anything. And so the entire class was geared towards being able to articulate why we are good employees, why we would be good for any workplace, and really knowing how to own who we were and how to sell our unique talents. It was by far the most rewarding class that I have ever taken, and I can even link. We had to create a video at the end of the class. It was kind of our capstone activity where we had to market ourselves and create like this short pitch via video on who we were and what our personal brand was. And I can link to it, but that video landed me the job that got me here today. And so the whole process is so important to know who you are. And that's kind of why we're doing this webinar, is because this is like one of those things we don't really talk about in high school, but it would be super beneficial to have known when you get to college or you get into the workforce. Like, to be able to sit in an interview and somebody says, what are your strengths? And you're like, oh, beats me. No, own it. You need to own it. That's what the point is. So your unique selling proposition is what your strengths are. So your personal brand statement, I keep getting long-winded, like I go off on tangents because this is so important. So I apologize that I'm a little bit all over the place, but it's important to know what value you provide to somebody and to be able to say what your strengths are, what makes you unique, and what makes you the ideal candidate better than anybody else for a position or for somebody to believe in you. And then finally, the third component of a personal brand statement, this will be really easy if you're in simulated workplace and thinking about staying in those careers. It'll be a little bit more obscure if you're looking to go into like a little bit less tangible of an organization, but it's who do you serve? So like, what is your target audience? Really think about the people that you're serving and what their needs are, and that's how you define the value that you're providing for them. Oh, and this is the unique selling proposition definition. If anybody's curious, this is a marketing term, so it's very applicable, and it's easy to see like specific products, like why Apple phones have unique value, like they all link together, all of their software, like I can text on my MacBook, be on my iPhone, and be on my iPad, and they're all linked. So that's like a very unique selling proposition for Apple. It's a little bit harder to create a USP for an individual, but it is, once you've done that, that is significant. And so a unique selling proposition is just the factor or consideration presented by a seller as the reason that one product or service is different from and better than that of a competitor. So why are you different and better than the others? That's all you have to figure out. And so I'm going to show you a quick example. I really like this one because it's one short, simple sentence, and you can clearly define the different parts of the USP and the value statement and who she's serving. And so this is Amanda Steinberg. She is the founder of dailyworth.com, which is a motivational website for women. And so her personal brand statement is to use my gifts of intelligence, charisma, and serial optimism to cultivate the self-worth and net worth of women around the world. I love this. I think it's brilliant. It's short, sweet, simple. So her unique selling proposition, what makes her different, her differentiation is her gifts of intelligence, charisma, and I love this term, serial optimism. What is she trying to provide to her target audience? She's cultivating the self-worth and net worth. So she's boosting confidence and she's boosting bank accounts. And who is she helping? Women around the world. So this is very simple, very kind of overarching example of what you can do with personal brands. And so I know that this has been a lot of content, a lot to take in, and I encourage you to really take time when you're closing out this webinar to reflect and take this to heart, because it's something that is super important, something that I'm working on every day to make sure that my brand is very well known, that I understand who I am as a person, that when I'm interacting in a professional setting, that other people understand who I am as a person, and really owning that. And so I'd like to close with 5 tips to boost self-confidence, because it's really important going into the personal branding process that you are confident when you're building your personal brand. Otherwise, you may build yourself a personal brand that's kind of hesitant or kind of negative towards yourself. We don't want that. We want you to go out there and completely own it, like rock the workplace. And so these 5 tips are used for you to really think about how you can kind of tailor your life to be a little bit less negative about yourself and be a little bit more confident internally. So the first is remove negativity and embrace a positive outlook. This is easier said than done, I guess, but it's the first step to being more confident about yourself is to just remove toxic elements from your life. Number 2, adjust your body language and image. Super important. And this is something that my sister, actually, I probably could work on it too. This is my home office, and I often find myself slouching just because I'm in the comfort of my home, or I come to work in sweatpants because I work from home sometimes. And so that you can kind of get into the vibe of how you appear, and you can kind of be the person that you appear to be. And so like, I encourage you to, pull your shoulders back, walk with confidence, like smile. When you smile, even if you don't feel like smiling, when you smile, you automatically release endorphins that make you feel more positive. And so adjusting your body language and be really aware of how others might perceive you based on that body image and your language that you're portraying. Even nonverbal cues would be really important to boost your confidence. I already kind of hinted at this with the first one. Avoid viewing failure as an end-all be-all situation. I'm not going to go too much into this, but just know to fail forward. I encourage you, anytime you kind of hit that wall, push through it, because failing forward is the only way that you'll grow. And it's in times of failure and moving forward that's really true, inspiring, like innovative things happen. You might fail at one thing and realize that that's not something you were really passionate about, and this is the way that you need to go. So view failure as not an end all be all, but just the ultimate like goal. You want to fail a couple times in your life to then find the ultimate pathways that you need to be on. Number 4, super important, be prepared. You can face any situation if you are prepared for it. And so, like, for example, say you have an interview coming up, you're not feeling very confident about it, practice. Get in front of a friend, talk to them, like work through those questions, like sample interview questions. There's a lot of opportunities to just be really prepared about different situations, and understand that sometimes chaos is great for us. Like, not understanding what's going to happen could be very good, but being prepared for any situation, and being able to be agile and think on your feet, it will take you far in life. This is my favorite kind of tidbit, and something that I really should take into account personally, is this idea of creating great lists. And so there are 2 different lists that we want to talk about. And the first one is the thankful for list. So oftentimes we take for granted certain things in our life that we should be really thankful for. There are so many things to be thankful for. I'm thankful that my senior year of high school, I tore my ACL and I didn't go play soccer, and that I went to West Virginia University and I found a pathway in life that led to significant happiness for me. I'm thankful that I broke my leg, because it got me here today. And so when you're writing a thankful list, we want you to write 10 things that you're thankful for every single day that can really be something that you reference and that kind of give you perspective moving forward. The second great list, and this is my favorite one, is something that's going to be really hard for you, is an accomplishments list. And I want to tell you a story. So I have a little sister. Her name's Ashley. She looks exactly like me with brown hair. She's 3 years younger than me. And where my personality is kind of like in your face, like I've never had issues talking to people. My sister is super timid, but she's brilliant, like beyond brilliant. She is the smartest person that I've ever known. She can weave psychology concepts into natural conversation, and people are like, oh, that makes sense. Like, she is an absolutely brilliant human being, and she doesn't even know it. And so we were doing, I was helping her work on her resume because she needed an internship. She's entering her senior year of college, and she's working on like equine therapy and how to help people with horses. And she's been really interested in horses her whole life. And we have 5 horses at home, and she's been working with them since she was 3. Like, she is brilliant. She's amazing. So we were fixing her resume, and on a resume, like to stand out, I always like to put like an accomplishment section. And I was like, okay, Ashley, like, what are some accomplishments that I can write for this section? Let's like try to name 5. And the only one that she could think of was that she's been on the dean's list for 3 straight years. And I said, okay, so have like hundreds of other people at your school, like what's next? And she struggled so bad with thinking about like what she considered to be internal accomplishments. And it broke my heart a little bit, because I was like, do we not tell you enough like how great you are? Because it really actually did hurt me as like her older sister. Like, that's kind of my job. But I was like, okay, like, what about you went to nationals for horseback riding? You're looking for a career in horse handling. Like, you've been working for decades with horses. You have more experience than anybody I've ever met with horses. Like, you know how to run your own stable. You have experience with like veterinarian skills because she works in an animal hotel and boutique. Like, the fact that she could not list 5 things that she felt she had accomplished in her life was heartbreaking. And so this is the importance of these great lists, because I want you to list 10. I want you to sit down And I want you to think about 10 things that you're proud that you've accomplished. They do not have to be academic, and they shouldn't be. I'm not going to do this. You know what it is. You know what makes you an accomplished individual, so own it. I want to see 10 things that you feel have accomplished in your life. And so you've created your thankful for list, you've created your accomplishments list, and the whole point of this is that you keep these somewhere close so that whenever you're feeling unconfident, you reference those, you read them, and you let yourself inspire you. But the final certificate, because all we want is the certificate of leadership so that it can boost your resume and it can go towards your personal brand. The final thing that I want you to do, you're not going to get away from this, is I want you to write your great lists. So 10 things you're thankful for, 10 things that you've accomplished. And then I want you to develop and submit your personal brand statement, the one that said what value you provide, your USP, your unique selling proposition, and who you're trying to serve. And that can be based on what you kind of think your career path is, or maybe a hobby. It can be kind of just developed by however you think the answer to the questions, who are you and who do you want to be, fall. That can be something that you develop your personal brand statement around. And so we're asking you to quickly submit them. I'll submit a Google form that you can put those in, and I encourage you to keep those on the side, keep them on your laptop, keep them in a notebook, keep them somewhere close and reference those often. And so with that, I'm going to stop my long-winded rant about personal brand. And if any of you have any questions about personal branding, you need some help, I am happy to help you develop it. It would actually be the greatest thing in the world if some of you would reach out to me during this process and try to figure out, like with me, I can help you brainstorm different things and kind of talk about your experiences and what really makes you you. So thank you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day and great rest of your semester, great rest of your year. I hope you have a great rest of your life. I hope you go and own every single decision that you've made. I hope that if you fail forward. And thank you, and have a great day.